Hello and thanks for watching Best Maths Tutors. Today I'm covering a couple of questions that's been sent in to us, and these are on solving equations, so it's algebra. And if you have any questions you'd like to send in to us, we're always happy to cover these. And for more of this sort of stuff, please click the subscribe button at the bottom as well. So this first one is where we're given that 2x plus b is equal to 5, and we've got to find the value of x when b is equal to -3. So it's actually a substitution question. So what we've got to do, we've got to replace the b by the value that's been given there. So we can see b's been given as -3. So what we would do, we'd rewrite the equation, but just replacing the b by -3. So we'd say 2x and then plus -3. So I like to put things in brackets when I'm substituting it in, so I can see clearly what's actually been substituted. And then that's equal to 5. And then what we need to do, we need to deal with the plus and the minus next to each other. So we've got a way of looking at this where if we have a plus and a plus next to each other, then that's actually still positive. If we have a plus and a minus, that gives us a minus or negative. And if we've got a negative and a positive, minus and plus, that gives us a minus again. And then if we've got two minuses next to each other, then they will actually give us a positive. So here we've got a positive and a negative. So that's this one here. We can see the outcome would be a negative. So we end up with 2x minus, that's what the plus and the minus make, 3 equals 5. Now what we need to do is get the x on its own on the left-hand side of the equation. So to do that, what we're going to do is we're going to follow the system of doing the same thing to both sides of an equation. We can think of it as being like a balance. So if you imagine sort of a seesaw thing, we've got something on one side and something on the other. If it's balanced, for it to remain balanced, we've got to do whatever we do to one side, we've got to do the same thing to the other side. So here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add 3 onto this side because that's going to, a -3 and a +3, are going to cancel each other out. But because I've done that there, I've actually got to do the same thing there. So that would leave me with the -3 and the +3 cancelling each other out. And I end up with 2x equals 8. And again, following this thing where if we have a balance, the equals is a bit like the pivot point in the middle of the seesaw there. And if we do something to one side, we have to do exactly the same thing to the other. So because this means 2 times x, if I divide this side by 2, which I can show by writing as a fraction, that means 2x divided by 2, then the 2's will disappear. But because I've divided that side by 2, I've also got to divide that side by 2. And so what I would be left with would be x on this left-hand side equals 8 divided by 2, which is 4. And we've finished it. That's that one done. So I'll just say again, the principle here is as long as we do the same thing to both sides of the equals, both sides of the equation, so here and here, then we won't make any mistakes. So I've got to do the same thing to both sides. Now this next question, x plus 1 times x minus 2 equals 4, is actually a quadratic. It's a quadratic equation we've got here. And the main principle when we're solving these is we need to always make them equal to 0. So we can see at the moment it's equal to 4. But what we've got to try and do is make it equal to 0. To 0. There we go. So what I'm going to do first of all is multiply out this bracket actually. So there's a way I look at this where I've got a first term and then on each bracket, we've got a last term in each bracket as well. So we can see we've got x plus 1, x minus 2. And there's a system called FOIL for making sure we multiply everything out. So first thing we would do is multiply the first terms out. That's what the F stands for. So that's x times x. That gives me x squared. Then I multiply the outside terms. Well, that would be, the outside terms would be the x and the negative 2. So they're on the outside of the brackets. And so we've got x times negative 2 would give us minus 2x. And then we do the inside terms. So the inside is the 1 times the x. So that will just give us plus 1x, which we can write as just being x, so plus x. And then finally, we do the last terms. So we've got a 1 times a negative 2. That would be minus 2. But again, following on from this system we've got here. So a positive and a negative will give us a negative. So that's where the minus comes from there. Now that's still equal to 4 at the moment. So I'm just going to tidy up this. Now we've got x squared, and then we've got a minus 2x and an x. So it's like having minus 2 plus 1. So that would take us up to minus 1. So it's minus x if we simplify the bit in the middle there. And then we've got the minus 2 equals 4. Now, I said before, we need to make it equal to 0. So what we're going to do, I'm going to take away 4 from both sides. So minus 4 off both sides. And then we're going to get x squared minus x. And I can only take away things that are like each other. So I can't really take away the 4 from the x or the x squared. I can only take it away from the actual number. So minus 2 minus 4 takes us to minus 6, and that equals 0. And from here, we've got two methods we could actually use. So one, actually, we can solve it on the calculator, which I will go on to in a second. Or we can use the factorization method. So factorizing it means we actually need to put it into two brackets. So we're looking for two brackets that would make, when we multiplied them out, would give us this x squared minus x minus 6. So we're looking at the beginning of each bracket, we've got to have something that will multiply together to make x squared, and that's going to be x and x, because we can see that if we multiplied them out, then the x and the x would give us x squared. And then the final term actually has to add up, has to multiply to make minus 6. So it's got to times to make minus 6. And it's actually got to, if we look at the number that is in front of the x here, the middle term, it's minus 1. So it's got to add to make minus 1. So we're looking for two numbers. The numbers that go here have got to multiply to make negative 6 and add to make minus 1. So this is a little bit of just trial and error, really, to find these numbers. So you might want to think of all the numbers that multiply to make 6, and then because it's a minus, one of them's got to be plus and one of them's got to be minus. So in this case, negative 3 and positive 2 would multiply to give us negative 6. If we multiply them together, 3 times 2 is 6, but because it's a minus times a positive, then that would give us a negative there. And if we were just to add them together, minus 3 plus 2, well, if we think about a number line, there's 0. So minus 1, minus 2, minus 3. And so if we were at minus 3 and we added 2 to it, we'd end up at minus 1. So that's correct. So we can see these are our two numbers, which means they go in our bracket. So we could have x minus 3 and x plus 2. So, having just cleared a bit of space there, we've got x minus 3, x plus 2. I'm just rewriting this just so you can see what we're doing again. So that's just the same as that. And if we've got two brackets multiplying each other and they give us 0, then there's only one way that could be true. Either the first bracket must be 0 or the second bracket must be 0. So if we said the first bracket was 0, that would mean that x minus 3 would be equal to 0. And that would mean that x, for that to be true, x would have to equal 3. So that's the first one of our solutions. These quadratics, I didn't say at the beginning, actually generally have two solutions. So the other solution is given from x plus 2, the second bracket, to make that equal 0. So I could take away 2 from both sides, and we'd end up with x is equal to negative 2 because these would cancel with each other. So that's our solutions there. I'm just going to show you as well how we might do this on a calculator. So if we have, this is a standard calculator you might get for GCSE nowadays. So it's got some advanced functions on it, which can save us a lot of messing about. So particularly if we're on a calculator paper, you might want to use the solver for quadratic equations on it. So the way we would access that is we would press the setup button. There we go, or menu button actually. So we've got lots of different options here, but what we're after is, if I just use these are navigation keys. These, if I go down further, we can see we've got one which got as x, y equals 0. And so that's trying to suggest it's an equation solver. So we can see equation function. If I press A here, so that one is A there, we can see. So if I press A, which is written in red on the calculator, then that will select that one. And what we've got is actually a polynomial. So we need to press in number 2. It's asking us for the degree of the polynomial. Well, because this is squared, the degree is the highest power that's in the equation. So because this is squared, it's actually a of polynomial degree 2. So we press 2. And now what it's asking us to do is to enter the values of A, B, and C. And these are the numbers which are multiplying the x squared, the x, and the final number in the equation. So if we find A there, well, A is going to be just 1 because there's no number in front of the x squared. So that's actually saying it's a 1. So we can type in 1, and then we press equals, and then it moves on to the next one. So that one is minus 1, and we can press a minus there, that one there, and then 1, and that one's done. And then now finally we've got minus 6. And so press equals, there's our equation, 1x squared minus 1x minus 6. And if we press equals again, it'll give us the two solutions. So we can see one solution, which is the first one that we got, is x equals 3. So x1 tells us it's the first solution. And if I press the equals again, I get minus 2, which was the second one that we found. So even if you want to use the algebra method of factorization, it's always useful to just check your answer using your calculator. So we can see we did get 3 and negative 2 as our solutions from the calculator. Right then, well, we've got them there, haven't we? So x equals 3 and x equals minus 2. If we look at the final question that's been sent in to us, so here again, it's another equation to solve. We've got to find the value for x. So you can see this one's a little bit more complicated, and we've got x's on both sides, and there's a fraction there as well. So we need to deal with this 4/3. So the first thing that I might do here, following that explanation I had before about if you've got an equation, it's a bit like having a seesaw with something on one side and something on the other. And we want to rearrange it, so we've just got x on one side and equals on the other side, equals something on the other side. Well, we can do that by gradually manipulating this equation. And if we, for example, take something off this side here, we've got to take something off that side there. Got to do exactly the same thing to both sides of the equation. So the first thing I'm going to target actually is this 3, just to make life a little bit easier. So I'm going to get rid of the 3 on the bottom. So the 3 is dividing the x there. So what I could do is I could just times both sides by 3. So times that side by 3 and times all of this side by 3. And what's important is to make sure that you times each part. So what I'm going to get then, I multiply the 3 into this bracket. I've got 3 times 2x, so that's going to give me 6x, and then I've got 3 times 5, that's going to give me 15. I'll say left-hand side of the equals. On this side, if I multiply 4/3 of x by 3, well, the 3's will cancel there. So that's just going to leave me with 4x. But I can't forget, and this is a common mistake, to not multiply this -1 as well. I've got to multiply that. And so that would give me -3. So now it's looking a bit nicer because I've got rid of the fraction. I'm just going to then make sure I get all the x's on the same side. And sometimes you might want to get the x's on the right-hand side. Sometimes you might want to get the x's on the left-hand side of the equals. And you always want to go for the side that's got the most number of x's on. So I'm going to try and get this, because I've got 6x here and I've got 4x here, I've got more x's on the left than the right. So I'm going to get rid of this 4x and try and get all the x's on the left-hand side here. So to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to subtract 4x from this side, from the right-hand side. But because I've done it there, I've got to do the same thing on this side. So I always need to do the same thing, both sides. So the 4x's will cancel each other out. Because if I add 4x and then take 4x away, then obviously that leaves me with 0. So they disappear. And then I've got 6x take 4x is 2x. So 2x plus 15 equals -3. Now I want to, as I said, I want to get the x's on one side, the numbers on the other. So I'm going to try and target this plus 15 now. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take away 15 there. And again, think of it as a mirror line or a balance. So whatever I do on one side of this mirror line, or think of it as a balance if you prefer, I've got to do on the other side. So I've got to take away 15 there. And so what that's going to leave me with, the 15s are going to disappear. And I'm going to get just 2x on its own there. And I'm going to get -18. So it's looking a lot more solvable now. All I want to do is get rid of this 2 now in front of the x. Now that means it's 2 times x. Now that's 2 times x. When we write a number and a letter next to each other with nothing in between, that actually means it's times. So the opposite to timesing by 2 is dividing by 2. So I can show that again by a fraction. If I divide it by 2 and times by 2, 2's will cancel. But I've got to do it on this side as well. So that leaves me with just x on the left-hand side. And on the right-hand side, I've got -18, take away 2. Oh, sorry, divided by 2, I should say. And that's going to give me -9. And we've done it. That's it. So I hope that's been helpful to you. And please feel free to send us in any questions you'd like us to cover. And as always, hit the subscribe button as well, please. And thanks for watching.